So we are going to talk about the life cycle of Nephrolepis. Yes. So we are focusing on what? The sporophyte, because the sporophyte is the dominant plant in this life cycle. So if you take a look at the sporophyte, what can you clearly see? You need to know that Nephrolepis is a vascular plant. So it has xylem and phloem. Therefore it has true leaves, true roots and true stems. So take a look at this plant, this sporophyte. You can see that there are true leaves. This thing is known as a rhizome. Rhizome is an underground stem. Over here you can see roots. So true roots, stems and leaves. These leaves, as you can see, they have cuticle. They have stomata. They are just like any normal plant. Right. The young leaves are fiddlehead. They have this characteristic shape known as the fiddlehead, while the mature ones you can see are compound pinnate. This arrangement that you see, alternative arrangement, is known as a compound pinnate leaves. In addition, that is not shown in this diagram, you have branches that go from one plantlet to another plantlet known as a stole. Right. Then what happens? If you look at the underside of this mature leaflet, what do you see? You see that there are so many chickenpox like things. These are known as the sorus, right? Sorus. When you look at them all together, it is known as a sori. If you look at them individually, it is known as a sorus, just singular plural. This sorus is not sporangia. Sorus is not equal to sporangia. Sorus is a cluster of sporangia. All that you can see here, these are all sporangia. This covering is what? What do you call this covering? This covering is indusium. So in this diagram, it looks like this. But in the video that we saw, how is it? It covers that entire structure. Okay, that is indusium. So now what does this indusium do? This indusium protects this sporangia when they are young. But once it matures, once it grows, it is time for this sporangia to start producing spores. These sporangia will produce spores by meiosis. So all of that spore production takes place inside that ball. But spores being produced inside that ball has no purpose. That spore has to be released to the environment. So once it is time for this spore to be released to the environment, this sporangia cracks open, releasing all the spores to the environment. How does that happen? Due to water loss. When there is water loss, there is more water loss from this side than the other side. As a result, this side will open up, releasing all the spores that are present inside. These spores are then dispersed by wind. They will go to a favorable habitat, and that spore will then eventually germinate into a gametophyte. This gametophyte is not male gametophyte or a female gametophyte. This gametophyte has both the male parts and the female parts, and they are bisexual or monoecious gametophyte. So they contain both the antheridia, the male parts, archegonia, the female parts. As you can see, this gametophyte is heart-shaped, green color. That means they are photosynthetic and they don't have true roots. They are just rhizoids. These rhizoids, archegonium, antheridium, everything is found on their ventral surface. This is known as the dorsal, this is known as the ventral surface. On that ventral surface, you will have archegonium and antheridium. Antheridium will produce multiple sperms. Archegonium will produce an egg and retain it. This sperm that is produced will be sent into the external environment. In response to chemical attractants, this archegonium will release chemical attractants. In response to that chemical attractants, these sperm will go inside this archegonium. As they go inside this archegonium, they will fuse with the egg cell, resulting in the formation of a zygote. This zygote will eventually develop into an embryo. That embryo will become the young sporophyte. Young sporophyte, what type of leaves do they have? Fiddlehead young leaves. Right. This sporophyte will obtain all its nutrients and water from whom? From the gametophyte in which it was produced. Until when? Until this sporophyte obtains its own photosynthetic tissues, then it will become an independent plant. In Pogonatum we saw gametophyte is dominant, sporophyte is dependent. But in this case, sporophyte is dominant. However, both gametophyte and sporophyte are independent. Right? But you can see sporophytes are slowly coming out on top. Eventually, at the end, by flowering plants, gametophyte cannot even be seen to that point. Understood? That is that trend in reduction of gametophyte. The reason why that is very important is gametes, what do they produce? Gametophyte, what do they produce? Gametes. So if these gametophytes are very large, they are prone to damage. So as it is becoming more evolved, these gametophytes become smaller and smaller and more protected. Understood? That is that evolutionary trend of reduced gametophyte. This is the life cycle of Nephrolepis.